Okay, in this video we are going to tie a database to a web page. Okay, the first thing we need to do is have the actual connector built. We're going to use a programming language called PHP. So we've got a problem here in that we're going to use a new programming language, and we're going to have to go over some basics. Now, one of the things is that we set up a connection to that database, and every time we want to connect to it in our web page, we call that connection. For security reasons, you don't want that connection to be in a folder that's web accessible. So remember, on Ubuntu systems, var www/html, that's where Apache looks for web pages. So you don't want this file that's going, this code that's going to set up the connection to your database anywhere in that directory. So I usually choose to put them in my home directory. So I'm in my home directory right now, and inside of that I have a conf directory, so configuration directory. I'm going to go in there and poke around a little bit. If somebody breaks my web page and gets to this folder, well, pretty much toast anyways at that point. They've got a lot of access. Alright, so I'm actually using this configuration file to hook up to the database. But what I'm going to look at is, or show you, is this one. So let's see, Vim. Actually, I've already looked at this, so this one. Okay, let's see, hopefully you can read this. Okay, PHP, little introduction. When you're going to write PHP code, you start with &, question mark, PHP. That lets the PHP translator know that you are starting to write PHP code. This is a try. Well, in PHP it's not try except, it's try catch, but this is just like in Python. This is a try except block. Inside of this try, this is where we make the connection. Now, making a connection into a database and hooking it to a web page can be insecure. If you run into things like something called mysql injection, that's not good. People can break into your database. So PHP has a built-in class called PDO, which automatically secures your connection for you, makes it a lot easier. We're going to use that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a new connection. The connection is going to be called DBH. In PHP, when you want to declare a new variable, variables always start with a $. So $DBH. This is just a variable, and that's going to be used for our database connection. New. So we want a new instance. This is a class. So PDOs have this PDO as an object, have a new class, new PDO. This stuff you want to just copy basically as is. MySQL, the host, is localhost. We'll explain more next semester what localhost means in this case. DB name, employees. Actually, I think, what did I call mine? DC employees. So DC employees, and we're going to use the UTF-8 character set. This next piece in brackets is your MySQL username. Shoot, I was making a video and I just finished. Thank you for that. I don't want that. What I want is this. There we go. And then the next bit, so that's not my username. This is your MySQL username, so it can log into MySQL. And then this is your password. This next bit, array. So array is just, it declares a PHP array. You have to type this PDO attribute error mode, error PDO error mode exception. I don't know how much I want to get into what this is. This double colon means that PDO is a class. This is an attribute inside the class. Again, PDO class. Attribute inside the class. Basically, we're turning on exceptions. So if there's an error with the connection, we'll see it. And then we get this catch that will tell us that the connection failed. Okay? So there you go. All of these PHP commands end with a semicolon. So this is new from Python. In Python knows where new commands end. Excuse me. So in Python, we use spaces and indentation to kind of structure our code, but also those spaces and indentation tell the Python translator where code blocks are. PHP doesn't work that way. You can indent this thing any old doggone way you want to, but every line of code has to end in a semicolon. So this thing, from the $dbh to that semicolon, that's one line of code. Hopefully that makes some sense. How do you tell then, if you don't use spaces and indentation, where a block of code is? So for example, in Python, if you have a for loop, you say for some stuff and then you have a colon, right? And then after that colon, you indent 4 spaces and type your code inside of there, and everything that's indented 4 spaces is inside a for loop. Well, in PHP, we have this try catch block. See that curly brace right there? Right there? That curly brace matches with this curly brace. Anything inside those curly braces is inside this try block. So instead of using indentation, this uses curly braces. PHP uses curly braces, which frankly is more traditional, closer to like the C programming language. Catch. Notice curly brace, curly brace. This curly brace doesn't have to end with a semicolon, and then there's 2 lines of code in here. Echo is sort of like a print statement. How much detail do we want to get into? All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about echo. So, PHP is called by a web page. The only way it has to print stuff back out, presumably when you're looking at the web page, you're not actually logged into the server where the Apache sits. So, PHP then puts stuff back out onto the web page through Apache, and the way it does that is it echoes. So an echo tells Apache, hey, I want you to print this to the web browser. So this echo statement is kind of like a print, but it's going to print to the web browser, even though this code, man, this feels like it's getting complicated. Remember, this code is sitting on a server that's going to serve up the web page. This echo command tells Apache when that web page is called, hey, print this stuff out. If there's a connection failure, print out connection failed. I don't know. It feels like what I'm talking about, that doesn't make sense. But as we go through this more, hopefully I can make more sense out of that. All right, so get out of here. The Q exclamation point, if you happen to be paying attention to that, I'm in Vim again. The exclamation point says, hey, if I made any changes, I don't want to save them. Okay, so I'm out of there. Now, I want to go look at, man, I can't type. My web page. Okay, so there's nothing in here. Let's see, class, web page, and list what's in here. Now, I put a new file in here, index.php, and we're going to look at that. But I want to point something out beforehand. So remember, I am on this server. You can actually see the name of it up here. It's AUS. No, it's not. You can't see the name of it up here. Sorry. Never mind. I lied. So it's AUCS. Remember that any folder inside of here is where Apache goes to look for web pages. So we're inside of that directory. So if I went to the web page, AUCS, blah, 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 /students, /DC, that class web page. Actually, you know what? Let me back up from that a little bit. Okay, so I am in the folder var www.html. This is where Apache goes to look for web pages. This server has been set up so that it serves up the web page aucs.alfred.edu. And we're going to go look at that web page in a little bit. But when you go to aucs.alfred.edu, Apache goes to this directory, because remember Apache always looks in var www.html and looks for index.html. So that thing right there, it always looks for index.html. If you go to that web page, you're going to get this HTML file. So Apache is going to go read this HTML file, translate it, and send that back to the browser of the person looking. Now, if we go back to where we were, I CD back to where we were. I have an index.php. So the browser, I can tell the browser to look for that PHP file. This PHP file is going to connect me to that employees database, and I'm going to show you how that works in a minute. All right, let me look and see what's in. Oh, we've seen what's in here. Let's look at that file. I could tab complete that. And what do we have in here? Okay, so we're going to build a web page. Start with an HTML. So we have to declare the doc type so Apache knows what it's looking at. This begins the HTML section. This is the head. So this gives some title information. And I also have a style sheet, a CSS style sheet. And I've put a title on here. So when we visit this web page, it'll say CSCI 205 lesson video, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of boring stuff. And then this is the body of the web page, and inside of this, notice I have another PHP block. So again, PHP blocks begin with question mark PHP and end with question mark greater than. Let's see. I was going over the comp file. I don't think I remembered to talk about how you end that block. Well, this is how you end it right there. Okay. Remember that this was index.php. The first one I showed you was index.html, right? Well, this one's index.php because I want to use the PHP language. And if I use the PHP language, even though I'm inside of an HTML block, I have to be in a PHP file. Okay. So let's look at what I'm doing here. Include home. Remember, we went to my home directory. I am logged in as AUCS faculty. Probably shouldn't be broadcasting it, but screw it. If you can crack this thing, good luck to you. Remember, I had the conf directory. So we were looking at that configuration file that was in a conf subdirectory, confdemo.php. So this, for my students, should be home. You have your own login, so this would be your login name. You can make a directory and make a conf directory in there and make your own configuration.php file. It should look very similar to mine, so just copy it. Okay. Now, remember in that configuration file, there was a DBH. When we include this, we include that code from that PHP file. So DBH is now a defined variable, and that thing connects us to the database. All right. This is going to select star from departments. I'm going to copy that. Remember, in PuTTY, you just have to highlight it to copy it, and we're going to come back. Get out of here, and mysql. Ooh, shoot. I was going to go into, hang on a second. Pause. Okay, so I logged into mysql on the same server, and remember that command was select star from departments. I don't need the quote around it. Should put a semicolon at the end. So customer service, development, finance, blah, blah, blah. So those are all the departments. Remember that. We're going to need that. All right, so we'll go back into the index.php file. So what happened is when I execute this command right here, dbh connects me to the database. And then this is an SQL command. You can put any SQL command in here you want. So I'm selecting star from departments. That's the thing I just executed inside of MySQL. This command is going to do the same thing. Prepare takes this command and makes sure that there is no SQL injection problems in there. So this is a security thing. And part of the reason why this is done as a class, in previous iterations of PHP, the connection to the database actually wasn't through a class structure. And the more modern version uses this class, so DBH is a class. When I do the dash arrow, that means, hey, this is a method inside the class. So this is very like Python, right? We have classes and methods. So the way to read this is, oh, I have a class. This is a method. There's a prepare method. This is preparing this SQL statement to be run against the database. And again, it prepares it against SQL injection attacks. I haven't talked about that. If you want to read about them, go ahead. We will talk about it here at some point. And that's going to do that select statement. Well, this command isn't going to do this. This is just getting things set up. This just does the prepare part. So I'm putting all that into a variable called departments. Notice it's a variable because it starts with a $sign. Now, I execute that statement. Okay? And this, I execute that statement. This goes and gets one row from the database. Fetch gets one row, and I'm going to print that. Now, as it turns out, when you do one of these fetch commands, what you get back is a PHP array. And when you print an array in PHP, you use a function called print_r. So I'm going to print this array, and notice I've changed the name here. This is $dept is one fetched row. So I'm going to print that, and because it's going to be an array, I'm going to use a print_r. Then I'm going to put out two new lines. In HTML, a new line is a break. And remember that we are running this through Apache, so this is actual HTML code. I'm going to echo this HTML code back to the web page. So I'm going to put two new lines in there, and then I'm going to execute a slightly different command. Instead of doing a fetch, I'm going to fetch all. That's going to get all the rows from that departments table. So from this departments table, and then I'm going to print that. That is also going to be a PHP array, and we're going to talk about what form PHP arrays have. So that gets a print_r. Notice these are not arrays, so echoes. So there's two different output commands in PHP. Print_r, echo. Print_r is for arrays. Notice again that all of these lines end with semicolons. All variables begin with a $sign, and the PHP code, body, HTML. You're also going to basically want to copy this. You're going to need a style sheet, so you're going to have to put in a .style sheet. I don't think I copied that over yet into my repo, so I'm going to have to do that. So let me get out of here. Let's see. I don't have that style sheet. Hang on a second. Alright, so I had already built these web pages, and I already had the style sheet built, so I just went out and got that. Okay, I think we're almost ready here. Let's see. Let me back up a step. Okay, yep. So this, remember, class web page is where my get repository is, right? It's got the .git subdirectory. And incidentally, if I build any directories inside of this and put those as part of the Git repository, they will also have a .git subdirectory. Pretty sure. Anyways, I promised to show you a web page. But remember, what we're really doing here is working with Git. So I'm going to run Git, and I want to look at the status of my Git repository. And it notices, hey man, you put a couple files in here, index.php and style.css. When I built this repository, that wasn't in there, and now it is. So you really should add those. Okay, so we're going to do that. We are going to yeah, we're going to add those files. Now I'm going to run git status again. Apparently I hit caps lock at some point. So now we have these two new files are added into our Git repository. And we should commit those. So right now, well, actually maybe we're good. Well, hang on a second here. You know what? We're 20 minutes into this video. I'm going to leave you hanging. We're going to come back to another video. What I want you to do is get to this point. So you should be able to copy my configuration file, use your credentials, hook it to the database, basically copy my index.php, and get a web page up and running. And I'm going to show you and get this into your Git repository. And then I'm going to show you where your web page is at.